So again, for the housekeeping, any questions that may come up, please feel free to raise your hand and I will be happy to address them. Now, for almost 25 years, Men&Mice has been thought leaders in the DNS network industry. Our suite of DNS, DHCP, and IP address management solutions are used by more than 25% of the Fortune Global 1000, and we provide public and private training classes globally throughout the year. This is an offshoot of those training sessions, and we do like to hold these publicly every month or so, these webinars. So without any further delay, I'd like to hand control off to Carsten Strootman, and take it away, Carsten.
Thank you. Sorry for the delay, technical problems with the network, of course. So hello and welcome to this webinar on DANE, how email transport can be done right. It is mostly on email, but we also talk about HTTPS, Jabber, and PGP on the way. This is a presentation prepared by my colleague Patrick Kötter from SysFor and me, Carsten Strootman, and I jump right in. So this is about, DANE is about SSL or TLS encryption. So the acronyms SSL, Secure Socket Layer, and TLS, Transport Layer Security, are synonym. So SSL is the old term when it was developed at Netscape, and now, since it is being done in the IETF, the term is TLS, but SSL or TLS means the same thing, so don't be confused if I sometimes talk about SSL, sometimes talk about TLS. It's a mess with these acronyms. So what is the issue? We have a large number of certification authorities that issue certificates for TLS. And the question here is, whom do you trust ultimately? The problem in browsers is that we have too many of these certification authorities. We have 200 plus of them, and we have to trust them all completely for the system to work. And the past has shown that the security of these certification authorities can be breached. They are not fail-proof. So we have seen Komodo, we have seen DigiNota, we have seen GlobalSign being hacked and their system being misused. We also have seen that some of these certification authorities don't play by the rules, that they sometimes issue fake or false certificates. And that has been seen just a few weeks ago with the National Informatics Center of India that has issued some wrong certificate. Of course, DigiNota with the hack has issued wrong certificate, and the some French certification agency, NC, also issued wrong certificates because some of these certification authorities are run by nation states, and they have their own agenda and want to look at some traffics. And the situation with mail servers and TLS is even more difficult because there's no human in reach if a certificate is not good. So in a browser, you might know the situation. You go to a website, the website is secured, but the certificate has some problems. So the browser tells you that there's a problem, and you have to decide whether to go ahead or not go to that site. When sending email to mail servers, they don't have any bias on which to decide whether to connect or not to connect, and the result is that mail is sent anyway, even unauthenticated and unencrypted, and the new DANE protocol is about fixing this problem. First, let's have a look on what is the situation. Here we see the mail going from the sender on the right side to a local mail server, also on the right side. It's then transported to the recipient mail server on the left side and further on to the recipient person or computer on the left side. Now, if the sending mail server wants to use encryption, it sends a start TLS message on port 25. The situation with email, and especially with the SMTP, the Simple Mail Transport Protocol, is that there is no specific special port number for secured emails. So either unencrypted or encrypted email is both sent over port 25. And the signaling is in band, that is in the protocol, in the SMTP protocol, to use encryption. So that is the start TLS. And if we are lucky, the recipient responds with start TLS yes, and a secure connection is made. That means that the certificates on both sides are correct and valid and not expired, and all the setup is good. But today, if some DNS spoofing is going on and the sending email server is being tricked in sending the email to the wrong server, the wrong server just also claims to do encryption, and there's no way for the sending mail server to authenticate that it talks to the correct server on the other side. So the wrong server or fake server here is just happily accepting email, and the sending server is sending the email over an encrypted channel, of course, yes, so nobody can snoop on the transport, but it is delivered to the wrong server. Another situation is the man-in-the-middle situation, where just someone sits in the middle of the communication and intercepts the communication and talks encrypted to both sides, but all the email is unencrypted in the middle, on the server in the middle, and whoever runs the man-in-the-middle server can read all the emails. And there's the possibility of a downgrade attack. Some man-in-the-middle system might be a server, but might be also a firewall or an intrusion detection system or some other middle box, can just claim that encryption is not possible. So both the servers on the right side and the left side, they ask for encryption, but the man in the middle playing the other side just telling back, no, I cannot do encryption, and that results in the email being sent just unencrypted, so everybody can read. We have to distinguish here that transport layer security is not the same as pretty good privacy encryption, which is also used in email. Transport layer security is about securing the transport path that is in the name, transport layer security. So with TLS, even if it works correctly, the owner of the mail server, that is the sending and receiving mail servers, can always see the email in plain. With PGP, email is encrypted end-to-end from the sender PC to the recipient PC, and everyone in the path, even the administrators of the mail servers, cannot see the email in clear text. They see some metadata, like who is sending email to whom, how large the email is, and when it is sent, but they cannot see the content of that email. So what is DANE now? DANE is a system to validate certificates via DNS, secured by DNSSEC. And that is done by storing the hash of an X509 certificate, which is what we use as certificate for TLS, either the hash or the full certificate in DNS. And that gives us a proof that the owner of the domain is actually the owner of the certificate. No more, no less. So it's not an authentication of the real person behind a service. That cannot be proven by DNS, but it just proves that whoever owns the certificate also owns the domain. And that makes the business for some man-in-the-middle attackers quite hard, because they would need to take over not only the certification authority, but also parts of the DNS to succeed. And the nice part about DANE and the TLSA system for email is that it also works with self-signed certificates. So there is no need to go and pay money to get a certificate from a certification authority. You can just create a self-signed certificate all on your own, store the hash in DNS, and you have a perfectly valid working TLS setup. Still, it works with all the normal certificates, so you can buy one from Komodo, Symantec, Start SSL, Rapid SSL, CS Cert, whoever is a certification authority, and you can secure that with DANE, but also the self-signed certificates for free. And here's now how DANE works. The sender on the right side, the PC, delivers the email to the sending mail server. And then the sending mail server makes a connection to the recipient's mail server, the SMTP MTA on the left side. And that recipient mail server sends its own certificate, as it's done before. But now our sending mail server checks in the DNS and asking for a TLSA record, a special new resource record in DNS, which holds the hash of the certificate. TLSA actually stands for nothing specific. So we can, if we really want a name for that, we can say it's TLS record A, and there might be a record B or record C later on. So the answer is coming back from DNS, and with TLSA to work, it is mandatory that the DNS answer is DNSSEC secured. So DANE is a protocol that builds on top of DNSSEC. So DNSSEC deployment is mandatory for both the sender side and the recipient side. The DNS part is checked in the DNS server, and if the DNSSEC part is good, the DNS answer is given back to the mail server, and now the mail server can validate the certificate sent by the remote mail server with the hash in the TLSA record, and if it matches, then we have an authenticated channel which is encrypted. So the new part here is the authentication. Previously we had also encryption, but we had no means to authenticate the remote, the other end. Now with the TLSA record we can. So we know that we are talking to the correct server and not to one man-in-the-middle system, which we see here. If we have a man-in-the-middle system which just claims that encryption is not possible, then the TLSA record in DNS is checked anyway, and the existence of a TLSA record that comes back over DNS is a signal that the owner of the remote mail server wants to have encrypted configuration, wants to have encrypted connections, and that the mail server is indeed enabled for encryption. And if now the man-in-the-middle system is claiming that encryption is not possible, that is a sign that there is a man-in-the-middle attack that the mail server can detect and log as some attack. Also, if by spoofing we are connecting to the wrong server, to the spoofed server, fake server here in the middle, then a request for the TLSA record is done in DNS, answers coming back, DNSSEC check is good, and now the hash in the TLSA record doesn't match the certificate being sent by the spoofed server. The spoofed server cannot have the same certificate as the real recipient, given that the private key used to create the certificate is not compromised. So the private key of the recipient is still in good hands and not leaked or broken. What do we need to implement DANE? We need, on the caching DNS server side, we need a caching DNS resolver that does DNSSEC validation. We can use bind9, unbound, Windows 2012, and since a few weeks we can also use DNSMask for that. DNSMask being a small cache resolver that is in many CPE devices, root devices, and also in Linux systems. It comes in Fedora Linux with the network manager. The latest version of DNSMask is DNSSEC enabled, but it will take some time until that version is being deployed in the latest Linux distributions. Since then, you can use unbound bind9, or if you run Windows 2012. You also need then, on the authoritative side, a signed zone. So you need a DNS server that can host a signed DNS zone. You can use, again, bind9, NSD, Knot, Jadifa, PowerDNS, BundyDNS. You have a great variety here. Theoretically, you could use Windows 2012 because Windows 2012 supports DNSSEC. Unfortunately, it doesn't support the new TLSA record. The new TLSA record is rather new. It's 2 years old. That is rather new in our IT business nowadays. And Microsoft is working on support for the TLSA record, but it's not in Windows 2012 or R2. So it might be in some hotfix or some later version of Windows Server. If you want to use DANE with mail servers, there's currently only one mail server that supports DANE, that is Postfix. But Postfix is very popular. A lot of large mail systems run on Postfix. Postfix version 2.11, which was released in January this year, is DANE enabled. And there's another popular mail server called XM for Linux that has DANE support in the development version, and it is scheduled for release either later this year or beginning next year. And lately, the last weeks, there was a lot of questions coming from inside Microsoft, from some Microsoft development team to the DANE mailing list. So it might be that that Microsoft and the Exchange team in Microsoft is also working on DANE support. I don't know. This is speculation because there was a lot of requests from Microsoft's side. And you need some certificate to store on your mail server. This is either an extended validation certificate, these are the more expensive ones, or a domain validated certificate, which are the cheap ones that you can buy, or as I mentioned, you can use the self-signed certificate if you like. Then in your DNS server, in your caching resolver, you enable validation. That's very easy nowadays. This is how Byte9 does it, but the others are similar. You select DNSSEC Validation Auto. That enables the built-in keys to use for the internet root zone, DNSSEC Locus Site Auto, and reload, and you're done on that side. And then you need in your signed zone, you need a TLSA record, and you can either build the TLSA record manually. This is how it is done using OpenSSL. The TLSA record contains a hash, a SHA-256 hash of the certificate. So we use OpenSSL to paste the certificate into the DRE form. And from there, we pipe it into OpenSSL, do a SHA-256, and we get the hash out. And then we put the hash into the TLSA record that you see on the bottom of this slide. The domain name of a TLSA record is special, very much like the SRV records. We start with _ port number of the service we want to secure. This is port 25 for email. _TCP for the transport protocol, which is TCP here for email. And then we have the name of the mail server that hosts the certificate, which is mail example DE in this case. Time to live, record class IN, TLSA record type. And then we have 3 values, which basically tells the recipient whether we have a full certificate or a hash, and which hashing algorithm is used. We can use SHA-256, SHA-512 here. And then the last value is the hash itself. You see that's the same value being calculated in the first line. But there are tools that you can use that are easier to use than OpenSSL. In libDNS from NetLabs, there's LDNS DANE, which can be used for both creating the record and testing it. So the first example here shows how to create a record. You deploy the record on your server. In this example, it's not for email, it's for a website, for an HTTPS secured website. So we give the domain name of that website, bund.de, which is the German government, and then the port number 443, that is for HTTPS, for secure HTTP, and it spits out the TLSA record for that. So it downloads the certificate from the web server, calculates the hash, and prints out the record, so that we just copy and paste that record into our DNS zone. And later, we can use LDNS verify, domain name, port number, to check that the TLSA record actually matches the certificate on the server, and that is a nice tool to use in a monitoring system like Nagios, where you can check that your DANE setup is still working fine. You see the TLSA records, of course, when you send normal DIG questions. You can ask with DIG for _25 _TCP mail.example.de, and this would be the answer here. We check that we see an AD flag, authenticated data, that DNSSEC check is okay. We see the TLSA record here and the signature for it. And in Postfix, configuring Postfix for DANE use is also quite easy with 3 new entries in the configuration file. We configure the SMTPD, the mail daemon, to use TLS, yes. We want to have DNS support level DNSSEC. With DNS support level DNSSEC, Postfix checks for the AD flag, and for TLSA request, it requires that there is an AD flag, so only secured answers being used. And then the TLS security level is DANE, meaning that if there is a TLSA record, then the connection must be encrypted. If there's no TLSA record, then it's fall back to the old way of doing opportunistic encryption. So it is like, or we try encryption, and if it works, fine. If it doesn't work, okay, we send unencrypted. As an administrator of your mail service, you can set the policy, and if you like, you can set the policy to very strict. So you say only TLSA authenticated, DANE authenticated connections are good. Everything else is forbidden. And in the log files, this is the log files without DANE. There you would see an untrusted TLS connection established. Untrusted because there is no authentication to the remote end. This was in connection to mail1 example DE. And once we have configured DANE, then we see a verified TLS connection established to mail example DE. So what are actually the benefits? We have now an authenticated encrypted connection between the SMTP servers. It prevents downgrade attacks, so nobody man in the middle can claim that the encryption is not possible, because the TLSA record is the signal that encryption must be done. And with DNSSEC, it's impossible to downgrade the DNS, so to strip out the TLSA record or to claim that there is no TLSA record for the name. It secures against fake or spoofed certificates. So if you are the owner of a certificate, it makes sure that nobody creates a certificate with the same name but a different certificate and sells that. And nicely, there's no certification revocation lists or online certification protocol required to revoke a certificate. You just replace the TLSA record. That is, you just remove the old TLSA record, put the new one in for the new certificate. And because the old TLSA record isn't there, all the old certificates that used to have this TLSA record are not valid anymore, because they are not matching the current TLSA record. Here in Germany, I'm from Germany, DANE and TLSA is very popular now. Back in May, the first larger mail ISP, Posteo, they started doing DANE, and since then a couple of others have joined in, even larger ones, with a few million mailboxes in there. And as you have seen, the German government does it, and others. And there's a website, tlsa.info, where you can type in a domain name, and it then tests the mail servers whether DNSSEC is enabled on the domain with the MX records, and whether there is a TLSA record, and whether that matches the certificate in the mail server. You see there the good ones that have implemented that, and the bad ones, the large providers that currently don't have implemented that. And you can check your own domains or some other domains if you like. But DANE is not only for email. There is TLSA for HTTPS, and I'll show you that on one of the next slides. There is Open PGP key, which enables storing of the PGP public keys in DNS. And so instead of sending that to key servers, we can now use DNS for that. There's IPsec key, which enables opportunistic IPsec. So if I have an IPsec endpoint, a VPN endpoint, I can publish that information, and others that connect to my servers can make a VPN tunnel first, and then send all the data through the encrypted channel without the need of manual key exchange beforehand. We can store the secure shell fingerprints, server fingerprints in DNS. That is already implemented in OpenSSH. And the DANE working groups are now working on S-MIME support and SRV record support. These are the standards. All the bold standards are currently already RFC standards, so they are finished, and all the non-bold are in the working group and will be finished later this year or beginning of next year. And we see implementations appearing, not only Postfix and XIM, also the Prosody Java server uses now DANE, and the Gajim Java client can use it from the client side. And on the web browser side, there is the DNSSEC validator, which you can download from the URL in the title of the slide. And if you install that, it is supported by Chrome, Firefox, Internet Explorer, Safari, and Opera. So all the popular browsers. You have two new icons in your URL bar. The first one, the key icon, tells you that the domain you are, or the website you are seeing, the domain for that is secured by DNSSEC. And the second icon, the log icon, tells us that the certificate used by the web server is actually matching the TLSA record that is stored in DNS. So we have double security here. And that is my introduction into DANE. Are there any questions?
I've gotten a couple questions as we went along, Carson. We'll start with the first. Does the Men&Mice suite support DANE and TLSA?
Not at the moment. That is not as version 6.6.2, which is the current version, but we are working on 6.7, which is on the final development road, I would say. We're currently doing the final testings there. It will be version 6.7, and it is planned to release in this September. And that version will support the TLSA record and therefore DANE, and you can use the Men&Mice suite then to put in the DANE TLSA records. And we probably will write some blog posting on a tutorial how to do that. That is how to create the TLSA record, how to install the certificates on your servers, make sure everything is good before you put the data in DNS, and how you can monitor that.
Oh, very good. The second question, for DANE, I need a DNS hosting provider that supports DNSSEC, and where can I find one?
Yeah, that can be a little bit challenging. There are a couple of hosting providers, DNS hosting providers, registrars that support DNSSEC. Sometimes it's hard to find them. What I usually do is, let's see, I have my browser here. There is this 6xs.net. Their main business is to provide free IPv6 tunnels, but in their FAQ section, which you see me browsing to, we scroll down, there's DNS, and there is a question, which DNS registrars allow me to add quad A records to my domain name servers. And they have now a section DNSSEC here, and they have a list of registrars with names. On the last column here, DNSSEC, you see either N and orange and Y and green. Y green means yes, DNSSEC is supported. And this is one of the lists. You see Gandhi, GoDaddy supports DNSSEC, Joker, Key Systems, Nominet, DANE, Switch in Switzerland. So there are a couple. So this list is not completely up to date and it's not exhaustive. So there are other lists like this. And if you search for DNSSEC registrar, you can probably find similar lists. But this is the starting point.
Great, thank you. We've got another question. What impact will DANE have on the current certificate business?
It's hard to predict. I mean, the business selling domain validated certificates might go away because people can create their own self-certificates and secure them by DANE, and the security level of doing that is the same as today buying a domain validated certificate for like 10 euros or 10 US dollar, 20 US dollar a year. So that business, this bulk business might go away. I see that the extended validation certificates have still their use case, because there the certificate authority is doing some more background checks. How good we can trust these background checks, that is a question, but they do some more background check that whoever organization is claiming to have this domain name or this website really does have that domain name or website. I'm not sure whether the certification authorities will also go into the market to help customers to deploy DANE. Might be possible to sell bundles of certificates plus the DNSSEC part. Important here is that that's of course possible and a good thing to do. Like there are some certification authorities that are also domain registrars. Important for the customer is to never ever give the private key for the certificate to an outside party. That includes the certification authority. So you never share your private keys, never ever. And also don't let an outside certification authority create the private key for you. That's not security, that is security theater. So own your private key, and then you're good, and certification authorities might help you with the business of hosting the DNS and getting the certificate signed.
Very good. I don't see any other questions. If nobody else has any questions, feel free to email them. After this presentation, we'll be happy to get you answers. And again, we will be able to provide you with a link to the recorded version of this webinar. So if there aren't any other questions, I'd like to thank Carsten and thank all of you for joining us.
Thank you, Paul. Here on my last slide, I have a couple of links where you can find more information like the RFCs and the tools being used, and videos like the video from Vice Venema, who is the Postfix maintainer at FOSDEM, where he also explains DANEs and how it works. And these links will also be on the webinar website for you. Thank you, everybody. Have a good day.
Thank you all. Yes.